Welcome to True Crime Documentary, where we explore some of the most shocking and complex crimes from around the country. In today's episode, a seemingly joyous occasion, a wedding only to spiral into tragedy. The murder of a young bride revealed secrets that no one could have imagined, secrets that would shake her family and friends to their core. This is the story of a husband's secret gay affair with his best man, and how it all ended in murder. Laura McGregor. 27 was a nurse known for her kindness and infectious smile, born and raised in Medford, Oregon. She had always dreamed of a fulfilling career and starting a family. Laura had a magnetic personality, making friends wherever she went, and she was deeply devoted to her family. She was especially close to her cousin Shane Riley, who would later serve as the best man at her wedding. Laura's passion for helping others led her to pursue a nursing degree at the University of Oregon, and after graduating she settled back in Medford, working at a local hospital in 2008. Laura met Bryce McGregor at a mutual friends party. Bryce was 30 and ran a small marketing company. He was charming, confident, and seemed perfect for Laura. They quickly bonded over shared interests like their love for hiking in the Oregon wilderness and watching movies on Netflix. Bryce, with his polished image and successful business, appeared to be the ideal partner. Laura fell head over heels in love with him, imagining a future full of love and happiness. Bryce proposed to Laura in 2010 during a romantic dinner at one of Medford's finest restaurants, Forta Dining at the Depot. It was a night filled with excitement and joy, and Laura couldn't wait to start her life with Bryce. She spent months planning their dream wedding, with all the little details reflecting her personality: elegant floral arrangements, a designer dress, and her favorite band Maroon 5 on the playlist for their first dance. The wedding day in late June 2011, as the local Hilton Garden Inn, was everything Laura had dreamed of. She stood at the altar, blissfully unaware of the dark secrets lurking beneath the surface. What Laura didn't know was that Bryce had been living a double life for years. He had hidden his sexuality from her, engaging in secret affairs with men he met online. Bryce's hidden life was spiraling out of control, and the pressure of keeping it all secret weighed heavily on him. Laura, completely unaware, had no idea that her marriage to Bryce was built on lies. She couldn't have imagined some of the people who were closest to her, who stood by her side on her wedding day, were also some of Bryce's lovers in the days before her wedding. Laura was excited and nervous, as any bride would be. She spent time with her family, making last-minute preparations and looking forward to her honeymoon. But behind her, joy was a web of deception, secrets that would soon come crashing down, leading to her brutal murder just hours after saying "I do." On the morning of June 26, 2011, the day after Laura and Bryce McGregor's wedding, a cleaning staff member at the Hilton Garden Inn in Medford, Oregon, made a grisly discovery. It was just after 9:30 a.m. when the staff member Maria Gonzalez entered the couple's honeymoon suite to tidy up, expecting to find an empty room as the newlywoods were scheduled to check out. Instead, she found Laura McGregor's lifeless body in the bathroom. Laura had been viciously attacked. Her body lay crumpled on the white tile floor, surrounded by blood. Investigators later confirmed that she had been pistol-whipped to death. The multiple lacerations and severe head trauma she suffered indicated a brutal, violent struggle. The pristine honeymoon suite, once filled with the joy of their wedding day, was now a horrifying crime scene. Maria, visibly shaken and terrified by what she saw, quickly ran from the room and alerted the hotel manager, who immediately called the police. Officers arrived at the scene within 15 minutes, locking off the hallway and securing the area as investigators combed through the suite. It became clear that this was not a robbery gone wrong. Laura's jewelry, including her diamond engagement ring and wedding band, was still on her body, and none of their belongings have been taken. The brutality of the attack pointed to something much more personal. At first glance, the weapon used in the murder appeared to be a small hand, then found discarded, near the scene wiped clean of any fingerprints. The hotel security footage was collected and police began interviewing guests and staff. But it was Maria's discovery of Laura's body that would ultimately mark the beginning of a complicated investigation, one that would unravel deep secrets and hidden betrayals in Laura's life secrets that would soon come to light when police arrived at the Hilton Garden. In following the discovery of Laura McGregor's body, Bryce McGregor was nowhere to be found. He was located hours later at a nearby coffee shop, sitting alone and visibly shaken when questioned by the police. Bryce told a bizarre and troubling story. He claimed that on the night of the murder, a 7-foot-tall man named Jake had burst into their honeymoon suite. According to Bryce, this man was Laura's drug dealer. Bryce alleged that Laura had secretly been addicted to painkillers for years and that Jake, enraged over a debt, had attacked her. Bryce said that the intruder tied him to a chair, forcing him to watch as Laura was brutally beaten to death. Rye's story raised immediate red flags. Investigators had not found any evidence of a break-in at the honeymoon suite, and Bryce showed no signs of having been restrained or injured during the alleged attack. Despite Bryce's insistence that Laura had been hiding a drug addiction, police were skeptical. They began digging into Laura's personal history, speaking with her family, friends and co-workers. Laura's colleagues at the hospital described her as a dedicated nurse, with no signs of erratic behavior. Her medical records also revealed no history of drug use, and her toxicology report came back clean. There were no drugs in her system at the time of her death. Investigators also searched Laura's belongings, including her purse, luggage and cell phone. They found no trace of drugs, no evidence of secret meetings with dealers, and no hidden stash of kills. Bryce's story, though dramatic, was falling apart quickly. The description of the supposed drug dealer, a towering man named Jake, seemed implausible, and police found no witnesses or security footage to support the idea that anyone had entered their room that night. The inconsistencies in Bryce's account, combined with the lack of any physical evidence to back up his claims, shifted police attention back to him as their primary suspect. The murder scene showed no signs of forced entry or struggle with an outsider, leading investigators to believe that the attack had come from someone who had been inside the room willingly. Someone close to Laura. The focus now shifted to unraveling Bryce's real motive and what had truly happened that night in the honeymoon suite. As the investigation deepened, police began uncovering details about Bryce McGregor's life that shocked everyone who knew him, especially Laura's family, far from being the loving, devoted husband he appeared to be. Bryce had been leading a secret double life, one that Laura had never suspected. Investigators found that Bryce had been carrying on affairs with at least a dozen men, all of whom he had met through various online forums devoted to anonymous sex and gay hookup apps. Bryce's affairs weren't casual flings. He had established long-term, intimate relationships with several men, often meeting them for quick sex at highway rest stops scattered throughout the Pacific Northwest. These remote locations provided the perfect cover for his hidden lifestyle, far from the watchful eyes of his wife, family and friends. One of his closest lovers was none other than Shane Riley, Laura's cousin, and the best man at their wedding. The affair between Bryce and Shane had been going on for over a year, making the betrayal even more devastating when it came to light. Bryce had gone to great lengths to conceal his secret life from Laura. He was meticulous about deleting messages from his phone and scrubbing his online history when meeting his lovers. He would make excuses about work trips or late business meetings, always ensuring that his double life stayed hidden, even on social media. Bryce maintained a picture-perfect image of a happy husband, posting photos from their wedding and honeymoon, While privately engaging in these affairs, the discovery of Bryce's secret life was a turning point in the investigation. Police combed through his digital footprint, finding countless messages, emails, and social media interactions that revealed the full extent of his hidden affairs. They also interviewed several of the men Bryce had been involved with, who confirmed the details of their encounters, many of which took place in isolated locations, like the rest stops along I-5. These meetings, often planned under the cover of night, were part of a carefully crafted web of lies that Bryce had spun for years. The revelation of Bryce's infidelity, particularly his affair with Shane, caused a massive rift between him and Laura's family. They were horrified to learn that the man who had stood next to Bryce at the altar had also been his secret lover. As these details came to light, police began to question whether Bryce's hidden life had played a role in Laura's murder. It was now clear that Bryce had been under immense pressure, not only from the impending responsibilities of marriage, but also from the fear that his secret might one day be exposed. As police shifted their focus to Shane Riley, Laura's cousin and Bryce's best man, they quickly sensed something was off when questioned about his relationship with Bryce. Shane Vly denied being gay. He insisted that there had never been anything romantic or sexual between him and Bryce, portraying himself as a loyal cousin and close friend of the couple. But investigators had already uncovered evidence that contradicted Shane's claims. Shane came from a deeply religious family, one that adhered to traditional values. His upbringing in a conservative church community meant that coming out as gay was not an option for him. For Shane, maintaining the facade of being straight was essential to preserving his relationships with his family and his place in their community. Any hint of his involvement in a same-sex relationship could have had devastating consequences for his personal life. His denial wasn't surprising to the detectives, even the pressure he was under to keep his sexuality hidden. But despite his denials, police had evidenced that Shane couldn't refute. Investigators had found sexually explicit photos of Shane and Rice together, documenting their affair in graphic detail. These images, retrieved from Bryce's phone and online accounts, were undeniable proof that the two had been involved for quite some time. When confronted with the photos, Shane's composure cracked, his calm demeanor faltered, and the weight of his lies began to show. Although he still denied being gay in the official record, his anxiety was Paul Rice had carefully concealed his secret life from Laura, but the same couldn't be said for his relationship with Shane. The two men had been involved for over a year, even as Bryce prepared to marry Laura. Their affair was a significant part of Bryce's hidden life, one he went to great lengths to protect. Rice made sure to hide the evidence, meeting Shane in secret and deleting incriminating messages. But those efforts weren't enough to keep the truth from eventually surfacing for Shane. The revelation of his relationship with Bryce was more than just a personal humiliation. It marked a turning point in the investigation, raising serious questions about the extent of his involvement in Laura's murder. Investigators began to wonder if Shane's desperation to protect his secret had driven him to take drastic actions, and he quickly moved up the list of key suspects in the case. As the investigation into Laura McGregor's murder continued, police received critical test results that painted an even darker picture of the couple's life leading up to her death. Just days before her brutal murder, Laura had undergone routine medical tests, which would prove to be a tragic turning point in the case. The results confirmed that Laura was in the early stages of pregnancy. What should have been a joyful discovery quickly took a devastating turn, along with the news of her pregnancy. The tests revealed that Laura had also tested positive for several sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV, herpes, and chlamydia. These revelations added an unexpected layer to the investigation. Detectives had initially believed Laura and Bryce's relationship, though strained, was more or less typical of any new couple. But the discovery of the STDs changed everything. Investigators now theorize that Laura had contracted the infections through Bryce's numerous secret affairs with other men, which she had been uncovered during the investigation. The sexually transmitted diseases were not only a sign of Bryce's betrayal, but also further proof of how deeply his double life had endangered Laura without her knowledge. Bryce's promiscuous behavior, often taking place at highway rest stops across Oregon, or indiscreet anonymous sex he arranged online, had long been hidden from Laura. These affairs investigators believed were not just about Bryce exploring his sexuality in secret, but also reflected his reckless disregard for his wife's health and well-being. The thought of having passed these infections to his unsuspecting wife must have weighed heavily on him. Though Bryce never admitted to any guilt or responsibility, the pregnancy itself also raised new questions about Bryce's potential motives. Police theorized that Bryce, already struggling to keep his hidden life from being exposed, might have seen Laura's pregnancy as the final threat to his freedom. Becoming a father would have tied him down to a life he didn't want, one full of responsibility and scrutiny, things he had carefully avoided while engaging in his secret sexual encounters. The idea of raising a child while continuing to hide his relationships with men likely felt impossible, and investigators wondered if the pressure had pushed Bryce to an extreme. Breaking point, Bryce's carefully constructive life was crumbling under the weight of his deceptions, and Laura's pregnancy and the discovery of the STDs may have been the final catalysts for the horrific events that followed. Investigators now saw Bryce not just as a man trapped in a web of lies, but as someone who might have been desperate enough to kill in order to preserve his secret life. As the investigation into Laura McGregor's death intensified, a devastating discovery was made that deeply impacted the case and those involved. Police learned that Dr. Henry Riley, Laura's own father, had been the one who had run her medical tests in the days leading up to her murder. As a respected physician at a local clinic in Eugene, Oregon, Dr. Riley had processed the routine tests without any initial suspicion, but the results he received left him in shock. His beloved daughter was not only pregnant, but also infected with multiple sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV, herpes, and chaya. The revelation hit Dr. Riley hard as a father. The news was heartbreaking. His daughter had been excited about her future with Bryce, and now he was faced with the painful reality that Laura had been deceived in the worst possible way. The discovery of her pregnancy should have been a moment of joy, but it was overshadowed by the evidence of betrayal and danger during her marriage. Devastated, Dr. Riley privately confronted Bryce about the test results. With the knowledge of both the pregnancy and the STVs, Dr. Riley was certain that Bryce had been unfaithful and had put his daughter's life at risk. He demanded answers, pressing Bryce to admit to his secret life and come clean about his affairs. Dr. Riley was outraged that his son-in-law had exposed Laura to such harm and betrayal, and he wasn't willing to stay silent in their heated confrontation. Doctor threatened to expose Bryce's secret if he didn't tell the truth as a physician, and more importantly as a father. He couldn't stand by and watched the man who had endangered his daughter's health continue to live a lie. Bryce was cornered. His double life, once so carefully hidden, was now unraveling before him. The pressure was mounting from all sides. Bryce knew that if Dr. Riley followed through on his threat, his entire life could collapse. His family, his friends and the public would know the truth about his secret affairs with men, including his relationship with Laura's own cousin and best man. This confrontation would later be seen as a pivotal moment in the tragic series of events leading to Laura's death. Dr. Riley's discovery not only deepened the emotional toll of the case, but also fueled the suspicion that Bryce might have resorted to violence in a desperate attempt to keep his secrets hidden. As the investigation into Laura McGregor's death continued, Bryce's world began to unravel even further. Police uncovered more evidence that pointed to a dangerous combination of lies, secrets, and desperation. Authorities focused on Bryce's behavior in the days leading up to Laura's murder, trying to understand what could have pushed him to commit such a brutal act. As they pieced together the timeline, investigators found that Bryce had been living a double life for years. His secret relationships with men, which Laura had been completely unaware of, were slowly coming to light. Police also theorized that Bryce's fear of being exposed had reached a breaking point. The fact that Laura was pregnant only added to the mounting pressure Bryce faced. He was living a lie, carrying on affairs with multiple men, while maintaining the facade of a loving husband. What truly shocked detectives was the revelation that Laura's father, Dr. Henry Riley, had recently discovered that Laura had contracted several sexually transmitted diseases, likely through Bryce's promiscuous affairs. HIV, herpes and chlamydia were all found in her medical records. The news of her pregnancy had initially been a happy surprise, but now it was clear that Bryce had endangered both Laura's health and the life of their unborn child. Bryce was well aware of these test results, as Dr. Riley had confronted him about them just days before Laura's murder. Investigators believe that this confrontation may have been the breaking point for Bryce, with his father-in-law threatening to expose his secret life and force him to come clean. Bryce may have felt trapped. He had spent years hiding his true identity, engaging in affairs in discreet locations like highway rest stops, and through anon encounters online. If Laura found out about his double life, Bryce stood to lose everything. As more evidence piled up, police speculated that Bryce, in a state of panic and fear of being exposed, might have viewed Laura as the last obstacle in his way. Her pregnancy, her father's knowledge, and the looming threat of public humiliation all added to the pressure. Investigators began to theorize that Bryce saw no other way out but violence, hoping that by silencing Laura, he could protect his secrets. After months of investigation, police finally arrested Bryce McGregor in connection with the murder of his wife Laura. The arrest took place early in the morning, at his home. Officers from the local police department executed the arrest warrant while Bryce was still asleep. As they entered the home, they were met with a quiet scene that starkly contrasted the chaos of the previous month surrounding Laura's tragic death. After the arrest, police held a press conference to announce the charges against Bryce. They detailed how the evidence indicated that he had both the motive and opportunity to commit the crime. The lead detective emphasized that they believed Bryce had killed Blur to maintain control over his hidden lifestyle. The news of the arrest sent shockwaves through the community, as many were left to grapple with the reality of a seemingly normal couple harboring such dark secrets. Once in custody, Bryce was interrogated by detectives. Initially, he attempted to maintain his innocence, but the mounting evidence against him became undeniable. Law enforcement had been preparing for this moment, and they were resolute in ensuring that justice would be served for Laura and her grieving family. In January 2013, the trial of Bryce McGregor began capturing attention with its shocking revelations of betrayal, violence, and deceit. Bryce, once seen as a devoted husband, now faced charges of first-degree murder in the brutal death of his wife Laura. The courtroom was packed with media and curious onlookers as the case unfolded, revealing the disturbing details that had led to Laura's tragic demise. The prosecution team, led by District Attorney Delaney Bristol-Smith and Assistant District Attorney Sarah Vissel, had worked tirelessly to build a strong case against Bryce. They effectively highlighted the evidence of his double life and the motivations behind his actions. The jury was convinced that Bryce had killed Laura out of fear and desperation to protect his hidden affairs. The prosecution's thorough presentation, including the medical evidence showing Laura's pregnancy and STD diagnosis, played a crucial role in their success. Access, on the other side, Bryce's defense sting, led by attorney first C.H. Reolds, attempted to argue that Laura's death was the result of a mysterious intruder and not the actions of her husband. However, the defense's claims were undermined by the lack of evidence supporting Bryce's version of events. As the trial progressed, it became increasingly clear to the jury that Bryce had orchestrated a cover-up for his actions. The evidence against Bryce was damning. Laura's medical records, which included her pregnancy, and the sexually transmitted infections were a central focus. It was revealed that Laura's father, Dr. Henry Riley, had been the one to conduct the tests, discovering the devastating truth about his daughter's health. When Dr. Riley confronted Bryce about the results, Bryce's life began to unravel. Prosecutors said the confrontation, they argued, stepped the stage for Bryce's violent outburst. Just days later, as the trial progressed, Bryce's defense attempted to shift blame, maintaining that Laura's death was a result of an unknown intruder. However, the story Bryce had given to police, a bizarre tale involving a drug dealer named Jake, fell apart under scrutiny. No evidence supported Bryce's claims of an outside attack, and the physical evidence pointed directly to Bryce as the perpetrator. Following the guilty verdict, the court reconvened for sentencing. The judge addressed Bryce directly, emphasizing the premeditated nature of his crime and the profound impact it had on Laura's family and friends. The judge ultimately sentenced Bryce to 30 years to life in prison, a decision that resonated throughout the courtroom. Laura's parents expressed their gratitude for the outcome, stating that no sentence could ever replace their beloved daughter, but they found solace in knowing that Bryce would pay for his actions. After the intense trial that captured attention, the fates of Bryce McGregor, Shane and Henry took very different paths. Bryce was found guilty of murdering his wife Laura during his time in prison. Bryce struggled to adapt to life behind bars. Reports indicated that he became somewhat of a recluse, often avoiding contact with other inmates. However, in a surprising turn of events, he formed a bond with a fellow prisoner who was serving time for drug charges. They eventually got married, a union that raised eyebrows but highlighted the complexities of life in prison. Bryce's new partner had a history of substance abuse, but seemed to provide him with a sense of companionship in a place where isolation can be overwhelming. The marriage, while unconventional, was not entirely surprising. For those who followed Bryce's case closely, many believed that he sought stability, even in an unstable environment, after the tumultuous events surrounding Laura's death. Meanwhile, Shane, who had been Bryce's best man and was later revealed to be involved in the web of deception surrounding Laura's murder, took a different route. After initially denying his sexuality and facing significant internal conflict, Shane eventually came out as gay. He married a man several years after the trial and started a family together. They welcomed 2 children into their lives. Shane's journey from a closeted man grappling with his identity to an openly gay husband and father showcased a personal transformation that many found inspiring. His new life was a stark contrast to the dark secrets of his past. Henry, Laura's father, was devastated by the loss of his daughter. After the trial, he dedicated himself to raising awareness about domestic violence and the dangers of deception in relationships. He often spoke at community events, sharing Laura's story to help others understand the signs of abusive relationships and the importance of being aware of hidden dangers. Henry's efforts were aimed at preventing future tragedies and supporting families affected by similar situations. The fates of Bryce, Shane, and Henry serve as reminders of how deeply interconnected lives can become, especially in the wake of tragedy. While Bryce remained locked away, Shane embraced a new chapter filled with love, and Henry worked tirelessly to honor his daughter's memory. Their stories illustrate the complexities of life and the lasting impact of choices made in moments of desperation. The murder of Laura McGregor was a heartbreaking tale of lies, betrayal, and a secret life that unraveled in the most tragic way. It serves as a stark reminder of how deeply hidden truths can destroy lies. Thank you for listening to this episode of True Crime Case Files. Stay tuned for more stories that delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche.